right. So we're gonna stay talking about public speaking today. We're gonna look at a couple more persuasive speeches than occasional speeches like we looked at last week. Before we get started, does anybody have any questions about the class or anything coming up? Perfect. So I pulled this from the book. I thought it was some good advice on for public speaking. So first is to introduce your message early to help you stay focused, to make sure you explain why your message is needed, and then to help your audience visualize what should be done. So we can think about these three things. We're going to look at two speeches. One is a motivational speech from Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday. The second is a judicial speech from How to Get Away with Murder. So both of these are meant to convince people to act. Al Pacino is trying to convince his team to play harder, win a game. And whenever a lawyer is giving a closing argument, they're trying to convince a jury to decide a certain way. So we're going to watch one speech and then kind of talk about it. So we can think about, I just want to hear kind of anything that was persuasive in the speech for you. So you can think about these things that we introduced today. You can think about ethos, pathos, and logos that we talked about on Wednesday, or just write down something you think was really impactful. Don't worry too much about connecting it to class concepts or defining why. I just want to look at a couple more examples, talk about persuasion, and think about how we can do that in our projects. Oh, and this has language in it, so I apologize for anyone that might offend. It's just a heads up.
3 minutes to the biggest battle of our professional lives. All comes down to today. And even we heal as a team, we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen. Believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. Now, I can't do it for you. I'm too old. I look around, I see these young faces, and I think, I made every wrong choice a middle-aged man can make. I pissed away all my money, believe it or not. I chased off anyone who's ever loved me. And lately, I can't even stand the face I see in the mirror. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that itch. And I know if I'm gonna have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that itch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're gonna see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're gonna see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're gonna do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. That's football, guys. That's all it is. Now, what are you gonna do?
Okay. Oh gosh. Get this up. So, did you all find this to be persuasive? Everybody? Yeah, great. So let's kind of try to break down some of what was being used to make this a persuasive speech. Some of the tools that are being used, either that we've talked about in class or just in general, things that you all noted. Yeah, Jack.
I think the reference to hell showed that they need to like get out of there. Like I assume they were losing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So using that really like strong metaphor. Good. Anything else you all notice? We'll go Joe first.
His tone, like, kept on getting like louder, and then it got quieter, and it got louder again.
That's a good thing to point out. And then Taylor, did you have something to say?
Whenever he was like talking about his own life and talking about how I don't know what exactly he said, like losing things and like talking about how they can like put in the work to not lose.
Yeah.
I feel like he kind of made it like feel bad in a way. I don't really know how to explain it.
Definitely. No, I think that's important. And we talked last week a lot about ethos, the character of the speaker. I think that really played into that. Yeah, Gerard.
His emotion.
Yeah.
Like, as time got on, like, kept getting more passionate about it.
Yeah, so that goes with the tone as well, but you can really see it in his face. I think him establishing his character, kind of, you know, he's really like looking back on his life and regretting some things and being really like open and vulnerable with his team, which I think that really can help persuade people, you know. No one wants to listen to someone sit up there and say like, I'm perfect, I've never made a mistake in my life, like, cause that's not real. We're all human and we all have made mistakes. So looking for that way to connect with your audience. Anything else that you all wanna talk about, that made this a persuasive speech? And if you don't think it's a persuasive speech, you can totally say why not. Yeah, Jack.
I think how he was like relating like life to like football, and I had to like fight for like every inch was
Yeah.
really persuasive.
Yeah, and I want to go back to this, help your audience visualize what should be done. I think this speech did a great job of that because he's breaking it down to an inch and just the next step of what needs to be done in the game, but also in their life. It was really visualizing what these guys needed to do. And that connection of life, bringing his life experience in, that's really explaining why his message is needed, really like showing the stakes of this in his mind. Good. Anything else you all noted or want to talk about from that speech? We'll look at one more. I think this one's a little shorter. And a different kind of speech, but we'll talk about it the same way.
492,750. That's how many minutes Nathaniel Leahy, my client, spent in a cement box smaller than a parking space. Now, the prosecution claims that Nathaniel's time in solitary did not make him insane, even though a neutral, court-appointed doctor testified that it did. Not to mention numerous studies that prove that solitary confinement causes severe psychological disorders. The facts of the case are clear. Nathaniel Leahy went into solitary confinement for less than a year, and just days after he got out, he did something he'd never done before. He snapped, exploded. He lost his mind. Now, if you still don't think that that can happen, then I want you to put yourself in his shoes for 1 minute. Just a fraction of the time that he spent there. Here. $492,750 minutes. And all he heard was this.
Did you all think this was a convincing speech? Persuasive speech? A couple people. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Whether you think it's persuasive or not. What are some things that Viola Davis was doing? We'll start Sarah first.
Using the visual of the tape to show how small the space was.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerard.
Wanting the jury to put themselves in his shoes to see how he snapped because all the time he spends alone.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Jack.
I think putting in minutes instead of like days or hours like makes it seem like really long.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all really, really great points. Anything else? I'm thinking of really, you see really well in this example of having the audience, visualize what this person went through in order to visualize what they should do and help explain why the message is needed. And yet, that is an important thing that Jack pointed out too, of just changing it from months or years into minutes. What else? Anything? So, every rhetorical situation has these 4 things. Exigence, number 1. Does anybody know what exigence is from this is still from chapter 2, I think, chapter 1 or 2 that we read earlier. So I just want to review these concepts. Anybody remember exigence? So this is the problem you're trying to solve. An important caveat for talking about rhetoric is this problem needs to have a solution. So the book brings up an example of saying, it doesn't make sense to make an argument that it should only rain on cornfields because we can never make it only rain on cornfields, right? But the book said it does make sense to argue that you should cancel a tennis match because of rain due to player injury. So when we're thinking of our argument and we're thinking of our exigence, we need to make sure whatever we're arguing actually has a solution. Something can actually be done about it. Do you all remember what this term means, Redder? We talked about this in class before. It's just a fancy way of saying the speaker. So, problem, speaker, audience. I think we all know what audience means. So the book made an important point about audience, that thinking about a general audience is kind of a meaningless term. Just because all of our experiences are so different and our beliefs are so different, that there's no real kind of neutral audience. Does that make sense to you all? Everyone is going to kind of bring in their specific experiences, beliefs, emotions. So you can think about a target audience. So within your major audience, who are the people you're trying to reach? So in thinking of the How to Get Away with Murder example, Viola Davis, like, if we think about her target audience, who that message would really resonate with. Can you all think of some like traits that might describe those people? Yeah.
She's trying to persuade people, so I feel like her traits would be, I don't know, I know she's trying to persuade them.
Yeah. I think in that one, like, she's really trying to tap into people's like empathy, like, so someone that has the ability to, even though this man committed a murder, she's trying to reach people that can be empathetic for what he went through. That's not gonna be everybody, but those few people can, you know, change this man's sentence. And she's wanting to tap into that. So you guys will, as you go through life and have to do public speaking and make speeches, you aren't gonna reach everybody, but you can think about who your target audience is and shape your argument that way. Constraints. So we talked about genre as a constraint on Wednesday as far as a eulogy and a toast. A constraint is basically anything that will affect the argument that isn't already one of these things. So not the audience, not who the speaker is, but anything else. A constraint could be like something to do with the social and political climate, you know, something that you could have got away with in an ad in the 90s, you might not get away with in an ad today. Things that just change, what's considered appropriate changes, like another constraint can be the form. So we talked about like a eulogy and a toast. Those are going to be different speeches. Another example, like a press release isn't as long as a novel. So you need to think more about what you want to fit into that one-page press release. Any questions about this? So we're going to do a little activity. So we're just going to go around the room and count like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to break into it, not groups, but you all will be assigned a target audience based on that. So Lee starts off as 1. Just say it. 1,
2, 1.
no, 3.
Oh, 3. 2.
And
3.
oh, Brian will be 3, and then we'll go up to Lauren.
So then 1.
Yes.
2. 3. 1. 2.
Okay. Remember your number. This is what you're going to try to argue. Social media should be banned for anyone under the age of 18. 1, this is your target audience. 2, this is your target audience. 3, this is your target audience. So read about, can you all read that?
Yes.
Okay. It looks really small on a computer, but this is a big screen. So what I want you all to do, we're gonna take just 10 minutes. I want you to make your argument in a tweet and make your argument in an email to your target audience. Just write it down, and then we'll get an example from each group and we'll go home. Great? Does anyone have questions, or are you confused? If you're doing this at home, just choose one to write your argument.